All right, thank you. My name is Larry Marker, and I'm never going to get tired of saying this. I am your America First United States Senate candidate in Washington, D.C. I've lived in Southeastern New Mexico my entire life. I was born in Hobbs. I was raised down in Roswell. I've made my living all over Southeastern New Mexico. I was in the oil and gas business. I was in the garage door business for several years. I've dabbled a little bit in manufacturing. I've been in construction. What I'm here to tell you is, being a small businessman in the state of New Mexico, I know full well what happens when your state legislators or your federal legislators pass laws and regulations that overly burden small businesses, not just in the oil and gas industry, but actually every industry in the state of New Mexico, but especially in the oil and gas industry. Unfortunately, the last 10 years in New Mexico, I've also witnessed the efforts of the progressive left to completely destroy our society and decimate the American way of life, not only in New Mexico, but all over this great country. God family country is my foundation. I can guarantee you, when I go to Washington, D.C., I will take your voice to Washington, D.C. with me, but I'm also going to take your values, and I'm going to take the foundation of God family country. When I decided to run for this state position, a lot of people asked, or this state Senate position, this federal position as your U.S. Senator. When I decided to do this, a lot of people asked me, what qualifies you for this? Well, for the last 8 years, close to 10 years, I've exhausted almost every personal resource I have fighting laws, policies, and the destruction of this country. I've been fighting laws and policies not only implemented by the state of New Mexico, but implemented by the federal government, mainly by the BLM in the oil and gas industry. I fought those laws through referendum projects, citizens petitions for grand jury, multiple causes of actions in court. I guarantee you, we need judicial reform, not just at the federal level. We need it at the state level just as well. As your state senator, I will fight every day to make this government accountable and make it smaller, because the bigger our government gets, the fewer liberties we have. We've had a good, solid slate of candidates here tonight, and we've got a good, solid slate of candidates all over the state of New Mexico. One thing I noticed different about this election and this election process is we've got multiple candidates that are unopposed. Those candidates are still coming out. They're still on the campaign trail. And what we figured out in New Mexico is the better all of the candidates look, we carry each other. If you go nationwide, Donald Trump is going to carry most of the federal candidates. He's going to carry from the top down. In the state of New Mexico, what I figured out, and mainly through the referendum project, you're going to have these local candidates, and these local candidates have a circle of influence, or a sphere of influence, however you want to say it. Well, if we support our district candidates, our county candidates, our local candidates as statewide candidates, those candidates will carry us, because when we support those candidates, when we do things like this roadshow, when we give the candidates an opportunity to stand in front of the camera with the bright lights, and they make your face look better, and sometimes there's blue lights and different things. Ryan knows all of that stuff. The better our candidates look, the better we all look. We all know, and it is a fact, that the rising tide lifts all boats. In the state of New Mexico, we do have a lot of negative people, and people say that we can't win these statewide races or we can't win these congressional seats. I'm here to tell you that this state is ripe for an unbelievable political upheaval. We've got momentum all over the state of New Mexico. Me and most of these guys, we see each other in a lot of different parts of the state, different events, whatever, we're just everywhere. We've become friends, and we're actually unified in one single cause, and that's to turn this state red. In the state of New Mexico, when I was asked to run for this, I decided to crunch the numbers a little bit. So I sat and I looked at the votes, I looked at the registered voters we had in 2020. That's the year that my opponent won this seat. And then I looked at 2026. If you look at those numbers, and this is a fact, from January 2020 to January 2026, in January 2026, we have 57,000 more registered Republicans in the state of New Mexico than we had registered as Republicans in 2020. That is an amazing number. And some of you are sitting there thinking, and some of the people on TV are thinking, well, how many more registered Democrats do we have? And I'm glad most of you are sitting down. Some of you guys are standing up, so hang on. We actually have 7,000 fewer registered Democrats in the state of New Mexico than what we had in 2020. That's a net gain of 64,000 voters. We're talking 26 number, voters, 26 voters here, 26 voters there, 1,000 voters here. Ben Ray won this seat. He beat Mark Ronchetti for United States Senate seat. He beat Mark Ronchetti by 56,000 votes. That's less than the net gain that we have. Our governor won by even less than that. She's actually not our governor, the governor that we have in Santa Fe right now. She actually won by less than that. New Mexico is definitely trending towards the conservative side. People talk about the DTS and the independents, and those are important. And I actually ran for land commissioner as an independent. What I learned about independents is most of those are conservative, and most of those are looking for a reason to vote. The reason they don't get out and vote is as candidates, we haven't convinced them, one, that we can win, and the other is that we're going to do what we say we're going to do once we get in our positions. I can promise you that I'm going to exhaust every resource I have left and every resource I can scrounge up, not only to win this seat, but when I get to D.C., I will work as hard as I possibly can to make sure that I do the job that you sent me up there to do. And every one of these candidates that were up here tonight, I can promise you those are the same kind of men. Now, we need to stop real quick. Martin Zamora was asked a question a while ago, and I need to address this before I forget. He was asked a question about the fair tax. Okay, most of us know a little bit about the fair tax. The problem is there's 6 specific provisions of that fair tax. They're far-reaching, and they will change our tax code completely. Martin was an intelligent candidate, and this is an example of what we have as candidates in the state of New Mexico right now. He could have stood up here and spewed a whole bunch of stuff he didn't understand, and most of you wouldn't have known that he was just spewing stuff that he didn't understand. The fact of the matter is he was man enough to stand up here and say, I haven't fully studied that. I'm not certain of every provision, but I will study it. That would have taken the Fair Tax Act would take probably 6 to 8 hours of serious discussion to actually flesh out completely. So that was not a fair question, and you did a fantastic job by not pretending that you knew everything about it. So I commend you for that. And like I said, that's the kind of candidates we have. If we don't know it, we will study it, and we'll figure out a way to get it done. I'm going to stand for questions tonight. I'll answer any question. You can offend me if you want. I've got real thick skin. I've worked on drilling rigs, pulling units, you name it. I've worked on farms. I've cowboyed on branding crews, you name it. I will tell you the reason I'm running, I do need to mention this, the reason I'm running for this Senate position outside of the fact that I do feel like I'm the most qualified person in this state for this position. As you know, I'm a write-in candidate. The reason I'm a write-in candidate is because I came in late. I had no desire to run for public office again. The problem is, in the state of New Mexico, I have worked with some of the greatest people I've ever met over the last 10 years, the grassroots patriots, all across the state of New Mexico. Some of those are in elected office. Some of them are just people who genuinely love this country and they love this state. And then my wife did make the statement to me that they're coming after our grandbabies, and what are you going to do about it? So anyway, I was asked to run for this position by several of the grassroots organizations. The state party jumped on board, several elected officials that I called and asked advice. Can we win this, and will I have your support? Every one of those said, yes, we can win this. You're going to have to work your tail off. You're starting not only at a deficit of about 80,000 voters, because the Democrats still outnumber us by that much, not only a deficit of voters, but you're you're going to be running because you will be at a deficit because you're a write-in candidate for the primary. Well, I did run as a write-in in the past, so that actually didn't scare me. I need 2,451 or 2,351 write-in votes to win the Republican primary to be your U.S. Senate candidate. My name will be on the ballot along with Jim Ellison. If he gets enough votes too. We should get that. We should be able to clear that in single counties. But anyway, color in the bubble, write our names on the ballot. We are write-in candidates. So that was a challenge. That was two challenges that were going to be up against me in picking this and choosing this. Excuse me, I went blank for a second. Those were two of the challenges that were brought up to me before I decided to run for this. I crunched the numbers, talked to a few people, talked to some people that I dearly love, some people that I worked with, and they said, Led is my nickname. Don't write that when you write. I get in trouble when I say that, but don't write that. Write Larry Marker. They said, Led, we don't have a candidate for U.S. Senate, and they're laughing at us. I said, who's laughing at us? Everybody all over the country is laughing at New Mexico because we don't have a Senate. We don't have a Senate candidate. How can that happen? Well, the traditional Republican candidate, I don't have any idea what happened. It doesn't matter. Things fell apart. He wasn't able to run in time. So I come in late. Yes, I am a write-in candidate. Yes, I am behind the 8 ball. We're all behind the 8 ball in New Mexico. But what I can guarantee you, nobody in the entire country has the grit that we grew up with in Southeastern New Mexico. I can promise you that. And I'm going to carry that grit to Washington, D.C. with me. So again, when I go to Washington, D.C., you're going to see born and bred Southeastern New Mexico, loves New Mexico, and I'm going to fight every day, every single day, and work as hard as I possibly can. They're not going to get our children. We're going to put an end to the slaughter, the census slaughter of the unborn in the state of New Mexico. We may not be able to do it at the state level, but I'll figure out a way to do it at the federal level. We're not going to allow our kids to be mutilated through transitioning surgeries in state-run clinics. We're not going to allow that, and from the federal level, we can put policies in place or laws in place that will prevent that. Is all of that a bit controversial? And are people saying, well, the middle-of-the-road voters are not going to vote for you if they know that about you? Well, you know, the middle-of-the-road voters, they don't condone slaughtering 22 or 23,000 children every year in the state of New Mexico. They don't condone late-term abortions. They don't condone transitioning children without parental consent. They do not condone most of the progressive policies that we have in the state of New Mexico right now. I'm getting wound up, so I better cut it off. Any questions? And, sir? Go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Marker. We know that you've run for state campaigns a couple of times and not been successful. So tell us how this is different and explain those losses and what we can do to change that now.
Okay, I did. And then in life and in business, I've had some setbacks, I can guarantee you. I know a lot about the regulatory agencies in the state of New Mexico because, unfortunately, I was a target of the Bureau of Land Management, the State Land Office, and the NMOCD. And when you get to Santa Fe, you better fire your beard off, okay? I'm talking to the State Land Commissioner, and I will name that man. Anyway, he's a lawyer for the State Land Office. I lost my point when I started thinking about Eric Beernoff. You will fire him, right, Mike? For day one? Day one? Yeah. Okay. I have had some setbacks in life and I've had some defeats, but I can guarantee you one thing. When you talk about defeats in life, in elections, you know, whatever, in business, basically defeats in general, it can affect you two ways. You can let it whip your butt, and you can lay down, and you can whine and cry. Or you can learn from those defeats. You can man up or cowboy up, whatever you want to call it. You can man up and cowboy up. You can learn from them, study, tell yourself you're going to do better next time, stand up and fight. But what I've learned in this life, and especially the last 10 years, you don't measure a man by how many times he's been knocked down. You measure that man not only by if he gets up, what he does after he gets up. That's how you measure a man. And that's the kind of men we build in Southeastern New Mexico, and that's also the kind of men that we have running for public office all over the state of New Mexico. Any other questions? That got a little deep there, didn't it? We good? All right. This is the part where I'm supposed to close like this. Hang on. Come here, Hugo. Come here. Ryan, come here. When we decided to do this, I know this is a little unorthodox for what we're used to, but when I decided to run for office, one of the people I called was Penfold here. Me and Penfold, we're two different kind of guys for sure. I called Penfold. I said, "Hey, Ryan," I said, "remember the forum we did a couple years ago?" And blah, blah, blah. He said, "Yeah, I'm not going to share every detail with you." I said, "We need to do something like that because in the state of New Mexico, and all these candidates are going to agree with me, we may get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and drive 5 or 6 hours to some far-off place in the state of New Mexico and see 8 people. The problem is, as a candidate, I love those 8 people. And those 8 people love me. And those 8 people love our country, and those 8 people love New Mexico. So I said, "Ryan, I've got to go see those 8 people, 10 people, whatever. I'm not going to disrespect those people. I can't see them a lot, but I need to go see them. If they call and ask me to come, by God, I'll crawl on broken glass to get there." So I said, "Ryan, I'm thinking we can have a rally type deal. And we can have lights, and you can work your magic, and you can have the pretty people set up front, and he does all that stuff. And he makes it look a lot bigger. We may only have 8 people in the audience, or we may only have 40 people in the audience, or 20 or whatever, but we're getting thousands of hits on these video clips. Every one of these candidates gets a copy of this entire, what I call a rally or a road show. Every one of these candidates gets a copy of that. And then they get to take a clip out of their speech, and then they get to start sharing it on social media. We're getting 3,000 and 4,000 hits on a lot of those 45-second videos. So there may be 40 or 50 people here tonight, but there's already thousands of people that have seen this. We have it live streaming tonight, thanks to Gene Dow. Thanks to Gene Dow, we have it live streaming. So you're going to see these candidates and thousands of different hits on these candidates on their clips. Hugo's responsible for that. I call him the distribution guy. He cuts them up and things like that. And then we've got Ryan Penfold. My walk-on music isn't near as cool as everybody else's, but he says that's what we're going to go with. And then I thought that this sign should say Marker, but he said it's going to say Larry. Now, what we've done is we've learned a lot about these, and it goes back to my theory of the rising tide lifts all boats. All right, these unopposed candidates, we even had a magistrate judge come up here tonight. He had no reason to get up here and speak other than the fact to ask you people to vote. Those are the kind of people you have running for office, and those are the kind of people that New Mexico is going to get out and vote for. We can do this, and I believe with these shows, the type of candidates we have, the vast array of candidates, we've got grassroots conservatives entering the political realm. They're joining with traditional Republicans, and we've got a very, very strong field. And as Senator Gallego said earlier, we now have a bench, and we're building a stronger bench as we move forward. Anyway, this is Hugo. I want him to say a few words. And then Ryan, we're not going to make him talk unless he just wants to. All right, Hugo.
Good evening, everybody. So I appreciate everybody that does come out. It really means a lot. And like he said, all tides raise all boats. And it's important for everyone when you see these clips to like, comment, share, and get the word out. Because even in my community, our city commissioners were decided by 846 votes. 3.66% of our local population voted in that city commission municipal election. And that shook me because, they say that these elections are by 10 votes, 27 votes for Mr. Zamora. And it's time that we do something different in this state so that we can get different outcomes. So I appreciate everybody that came out tonight. Thank you. God bless.
I'd like to thank Hugo, of course, and of course Larry Marker, and everybody who comes out and feels the spirit of what Larry's doing here. So I want to say thank you for that, and be blessed, favored, and lucky, or whatever you need, and I appreciate it.
I'm supposed to end with something like dramatic or something, so I'm gonna say, you know, let's get out the vote. Obviously, that's been a theme all night long. And really, all I got to say is people like you, the people that show up here, we know you're going to vote, believe me. Our job as candidates, like I said, is to make you believe that we're going to go do the job that we said we were going to do when we get up there. And then you need to hold us accountable, and we will appreciate it. When I get up to Washington, D.C., I guarantee you I will appreciate every phone call I get. If I mess up, I need to know it. I do need to give one shout out, and this is going to embarrass Mr. Townsend. I need to apologize to Mr. Townsend. I'm going to do it publicly tonight, okay? About 4 years ago, I called him and I said, you know, I want to run for state land commissioner. And I have a Jim Townsend invitation. I'm not going to do it tonight. But anyway, and he told me, he said, Larry, you know, I don't think you're ready to run for land commissioner. We got us a guy, so you need to step back and learn a bit. And Townsend had helped me on a lot of my various different activist efforts and things like that. He's always been a supporter. Usually in the background, and I understood that because of his political aspirations, Senator Gallegos has always been a huge supporter too. He's actually gotten a little trouble for some of the stuff I've done, but that's okay. He's tough. I call him the Spaniard after that movie, The Gladiator. You know how tough that guy is. He always gets up, and that's why I call Gallegos the Spaniard. Anyway, Mr. Townsend told me that I wasn't ready. I didn't have any business running for office, and I am a hothead. I'm a bit of a hothead. I'm very passionate. I love my country, and like I said, I'm not gonna leave the legacy that we're leaving right now. We can't do that. I honestly cannot look at my grandchildren in the eye knowing that this is the world that we're going to leave them. Anyway, he said, you're not ready. And I'd, gone and testified at some legislative stuff, and I thought I was a pretty smart guy, Then I wanted to run for state senate. I ran for state senate, got beat. And I thank Mr. Townsend, I think in his wisdom, he thought, you know what? And we get along great now. We've come back around. I have a great deal of respect for him. And I think Mr. Townsend thought, you know what? This guy's like the prodigal son. I'm going to let him go out there. I'm going to let him get his butt whipped a couple times. And then we're going to come around and see what we can do. Anyway, Mr. Townsend, I want to apologize if I've ever disrespected you. I did not mean any disrespect. I've never meant any disrespect for our legislators in the state of New Mexico. I know I've burned a few bridges. A lot of that is because of my passion. The thing about passion is you can warm a room up with it, or you can burn a house completely down. Anyway, Mr. Townsend, I appreciate the support that you've given me in this deal, and I appreciate everybody in this room. Mr. Zamora, we've had our words in the past. As you know, we get along fine now, although in D.C. I am going to need to share your apartment with you, and I know you don't want to live with me, but you're going to have to, so that's just the way it's going to be. Anyway, we'll see y'all later, and then I'm going to go let you push the button and get the music out of here. Thanks everybody for coming. Everybody on TV, thank you.